So what about you going through this experience?
It was tough, I gotta tell you, because I interviewed about 50 people, and every one of them was emotional. Every interview was emotional because I was asking them to go back and remember what it felt like, what it was like. I interviewed his family, I interviewed the citizens of Red Lodge, I interviewed burn survivors, I interviewed all the doctors and EMT people, and they all had profound memories and experiences. And so when they would cry, I would cry. So I probably cried for 2.5 years trying putting this book together. And Dan and I cried. We would cry trying to put this book together. And then I would go and write something and put it together. And I sent it to Dan. I'd say, "Now, Dan, this is really tough stuff. And so you have to read it and tell me it's okay." And he'd say, "Well, it's the truth, isn't it?" And I'd say, "Yeah." He'd say, "Well, then put it in there," because a lot of what I wrote was, tough on him. Because he would say, he admitted, he goes, "I'm a jerk. I know," but he didn't use jerk as a word. He used another word. He said, "Yes, I am, but I know who I am, and take me or leave me," and that's who, he admits that that's who he is. Take me or leave me. I'm not changing. And so I was tough on him. I didn't make him out to be a hero that he wasn't. He's a tough son of a gun, and I made that pretty clear in the book. He likes to push people away. He's very distant from people, and so I made that pretty clear in the book. But he said, "It's the truth, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it's the truth." "Well, put it in there." I went, "Okay." So
what's interesting though is you said, as you were doing it, you cried together. So this tough guy, was crying.
Yeah. Well, and he was, and he hates to admit that now, but he admitted when he said this would happen in the hospital, and I cried like a baby, and he would tell me these things about when he would cry like a baby, and I put that in over things like he would get so thirsty, and there was times when he couldn't have more. There's like something about not too much moisture with the burns, so they'd let him have ice chips. And when they finally let him have ice chips, he said, "I cried like a baby when they let me have ice chips." Isn't that weird?
Wow. Yeah.
And then there was another time when he had to learn how to swallow again after having feeding tubes and everything for like so long, and it was so hard to learn how to swallow again. And until he did, they wouldn't let him out of the hospital. And there was this one nurse that would come in on her day off and help him do the exercises.